Bartenders of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing that you have ever witnessed at your job? I worked on the bar in a restaurant, but would sometimes act as the host if things got busy on the floor. A couple came in once, I sat them down, gave them menus and all that. Not 10 minutes in I pick up a call and it's a woman asking to speak to the guy. I politely let him know someone's on the phone and they say it's urgent. He has a quick chat, seems okay and hangs up the phone. Before going back to the table 5 minutes later, she calls again. I go over again, apologize and say they seem really concerned. At this point he's clearly tense and making an effort not to raise his voice. After a few minutes he hangs up, hands the phone back to me and says if she calls again, just tell her I'm not interested in speaking to her. Lo and behold, she calls again, and I say exactly what he asked, to which she laughs in kind of a cliché crazy ex kind of way, and I shit you not, says well tell him I hope he doesn't eat too much, because when he finds the tires he'll be walking home, wishing he'd spoken to me and hangs up. I went over a minute later and asked what kind of car he had, because there was someone double parked outside and wanted to check it wasn't him. I figured it wasn't worth freaking him out if it was an idle threat. He described the car and said where he'd parked it. I took a sick break and went to check. All 4 tires were fine, but that poor bugger had not a single window left unsmashed or severely cracked, and there were a couple of rocks laying on the ground. Needless to say, they did not stay to finish their meal. A guy who pissed himself sitting on a bar stool and then wanted to fight me when I cut him off and wouldn't serve him a new drink. I was a bouncer for a few months at a dive bar and had to escort an older gentleman out to his cab because he had piss leaking all over his bar stool. That was the last straw for me. Carpload into the bar I was working in, coming all the way in and flipping a pool table on its side. Pinned 3 off-duty Applebee's waitresses against the bar. No one was hurt, and the woman who was driving tried to order a drink. Did she at least order a round for the frightened waitresses she nearly killed? Doubt it, they sound like they could drink her under the table. I once witnessed a woman openly fondling herself, dress hiked up, underwear pulled aside, in the middle of a not super busy bar. It was very obvious she wanted people to see. The weird part was, after a bar back yelled at her and told to stop or get out, a guy walked up to the bar back and said don't talk to my wife like that, this really happened. Seems like a exhibitionism/verism type of deal, with the wife being the former and the husband being the latter. Not to kink shame, but you really shouldn't subject people to something like that without their consent. That isn't kink shaming, that's just common decency. Used to have a regular who sold her time on Backpage. She loved Arquizo, so she always had the guys bring her there. What stuck out was that she always ordered Jägermeister and Diet Coke in the same glass. I once had to kick her out because she got so wasted she was giving a blowjob under one of our tables. When I could clearly see the dong in her mouth, she lies about what she's doing and says she is looking for something. Just trying mumble it wasn't me around the shaft holding down her tongue, ha. A pretty dodgy woman came into the poker's room in our venue, gambling/slot machine equivalent that we have in Australia, and demanded for us to find an outlet for her to plug in her charger for her phone. So we found her a machine near an outlet and left her to her devices. Later one of our staff was waved down by another stressed patron who said that a woman was moaning in the poker's room, went in to find out she'd actually plugged in a vibrator and was going to town on herself in front of everyone. Lived in Aus for a little over a year and worked in restaurants. The worst stories I've heard all involved the pokies, i.e. ruining marriages/people's lives. They have some special kind of holdover people. I was robbed at knife/machete/gunpoint, there were 3 of them, and people refused to get on the floor as they were ordered, and just kept playing. After a machete was hacked into one of the machines they finally complied, but one tenacious sod was still reaching for the play button from the ground. Lots of funny things at New Year when everyone is in fancy dress. Sad older guys who have drank so much they haven't noticed their wig has slipped. The weirdest is definitely having a mariachi band burst in through the door of the pub, play 2 songs and leave. Keep in mind this is the UK, it was a dark rainy midweek night. I don't know where they came from, or where they went after, but while they played they had the attention of everyone in the pub. But ass naked kid maybe 5 to 6 years old came in. Reactions ranged from WTF to laughter to attempts to help. Kid went straight to this lady, an every night regular, who turned out to be his mom. Apparently he hid in her car, and she was too zonked on various substances to notice. Kid was naked because he had literally nothing to wear, I later learned, and their duplex apartment a few blocks away was a vermin-infested hellhole. Mom was a serious addict. Her kid following her to the bar was the impetus that led to him being taken away and her getting sent to rehab. I learned all this after the fact. But the kid walking naked into the bar was definitely among the most unexpected things I've ever seen. That's just heartbreaking. I once served Catman a Bloody Mary. Dude had body modifications that were hard not to stare at. He was very friendly. He ordered a blue rare steak and returned it for being overcooked. I told him we can't legally feed you anything more than a blue rare steak. He hissed and ordered another drink. I'd like to add he ate with no silverware. The utensils were there, but he didn't touch them. He had fang teeth and what seemed like a strong bite from lots of practice. Did he push his full glass off the table and want another? I've just learned face palm doesn't mean you were laughing so hard you hit your face to your palm. Interpret that award as such. A heavy-set Middle Eastern man was drinking heavy and got very drunk at my bar. When he went to the restroom his prime rib dinner had arrived. I think he shot up some smack in the stall, cause when he came back way drunker. He then cut a long big strip of prime rib, about the size of a thick hot dog, then while glaring at me, threw his head back and proceeded to swallow it whole like a baby bat would a worm from its mother. It of course got stuck in his throat choking him and he passed out and fell on the floor. We cleaned out his air passage and gave him CPR. 10 minutes passed and he was still unconscious when the paramedics arrived. He left with a heartbeat but died later that night in the hospital. I was chuckling picturing him swallowing it and then it took a dark turn. I'm so sorry you had to see that. I have so many stories of the same guy who we only knew as Soldier Mon. Soldier Mon was as he referred to himself. I'm black Irish. He was not black nor Irish. He was about 5 feet 2 inches and also would say he was from the island. He did have a very strong Caribbean accent, but who knows what island. He came into the small music venue, mainly punk/metal, that I worked at every single Friday and Saturday like clockwork. He tipped super well and was usually nice to the staff, but the second he walked in the clock started until he would have to be cut off and kicked out. It was always fairly harmless and depending on the right crowd was hilarious to watch, so we never banned him, but more often than not he would piss off someone, usually the band, and we would have to remove him. I will try to list as many examples as I can remember. He would always stand as close to the lead singer as he possibly could without being on the small stage and continually gyrate his hips directly at them the entire set. The stamina alone was impressive, but definitely awkward when there's only 6 people in the venue. He would constantly yell at the band the entire time, usually compliments, sometimes complete gibberish guttural sounds. He would repeat the same lines over and over. His favorites were we love you, soldier, soldier, soldier. Can you guess how we named him? Yo sexy. Sexy. Yo sexy. It did not matter who was on stage or performing for that one. Sometimes when no one was performing. One specific time there was a very mellow acoustic show of acts from the local college. One girl was playing acoustic guitar and he was really going for it that night for some reason, and after she finished her song it's silent in the place with a crowd of maybe 10 to 20 people when he yells you play good, to which the crowd started clapping and agreeing. Realizing he had agreement and the crowd's attention he had to add to it now, so he finished with for a woman. He truly meant it as a compliment even though it was hilariously wrong. That one still cracks me up from the collective sigh and gasps from the entire bar. One of the times I personally told him he was cut off and had to leave, he flipped me off with both hands and put them up to his sides and Zoidberg style sideways scooted to the door, still with both middle fingers up, and then as the bar went silent he yelled straight at me, "Hey, you're a darn. But I love you." He then left. He would never finish more than half a beer before rushing to get another and would always tip and then put a finger to his mouth like SHHH and then tip more. I didn't understand the ritual, but I also didn't care. He would regularly say things about being a cop or something about FBI. Could never really make that one out, but he would say something about either and then giggle like a schoolgirl. Pretty sure he had learned the words, but not what they actually meant. After we would kick him out, he would walk out front and do the loudest whistle and wave for non-existent cabs and then stand there until one randomly drove by, when he would promptly run out in front of it to try to get a ride. Shockingly enough, this was effective about 50% of the time. I'll try to think of other stories and ask some old co-workers or friends to add. There were so many that it's hard to remember them all right now. Edit. I was just telling my brother this story and realized I left out that he had one drifting eye and usually had a fedora on. My brother said those were key details I should add. Former bartender here, worked at a serious dive for 5 long years. Once had a crack addict covered in prison tattoos explain to me why it's better to shoot heroin into your penis than into your neck. I'm a woman, no penis to shoot heroin into here. He was actually kind of a good dude in his way. He taught me how to stop people who were smoking crack in the bathroom without having it get rough for me. The trick was politely yelling from the hall to the washroom, "Hi, I know you're smoking crack in there, but if you could please leave, I won't call the cops. Thank you." And honestly, it worked like a charm. I also once served a very large woman with some pretty decent stubble and her man friend, who was cross-eyed and kinda smelled like pee. They were sitting at a booth at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and she was taking blowjob shots, which are topped with whipped cream and you're not supposed to use your hands to drink. Each time I brought her one, she lifted her breasts, one by one, and placed them on the table, so that she could lean over them to reach the shot glass on the table with her mouth. By shot number 3 or 4 she had whipped cream in her whiskers and her man friend was leaning across the table to stroke her face and say, "I duck in lieu of you." Honestly, I actually think the moral of that story is that there's someone for everyone, and that's kinda sweet. I have more stories about cracky McPrison tats and tons of stories about that bar in general. It was deeply unsafe, but also kind of a gig I loved, and I met some people I still consider my closest friends. This happened on my first Friday night. There was 2 French women mid to late 20s having a good night, very chatty to the staff, even though it was busy, but that quite nice and refreshing for a busy night. This one large sweaty guy makes his way to the bar and orders a drink while standing between these 2 women. As he overhears their accent, he asks, "Are you 2 French?" The ladies reply politely and continue talking between them. This guy pulls down his pants all the way to his ankles and says, "In that case, welcome to Scotland, baby," while making solid eye contact with me looking for approval. At this point, one of the girls grabs the guy's dung and balls and starts pulling him out of the pub like he's a disobedient dog, and the pure look of regret and embarrassment on the guy's face was priceless. She was really pulling with all her force and the guy was just trying to stay in one piece. The other girl finished her drinks, tipped us all very well, thanked us for a great night and swiftly left. As she opened the door, I heard a faint yell of, "But it was funny, right?" Used to bartend at a strip club, so I definitely saw some weird things. The ones that stick out the most include bartending in VIP and a guy refused to pay the girls for the hours. VIP host, who was also a former fighter, asked the guy to pay. Guy gets belligerent, calls him a slur and spits in the host's face. Host hits him once, KO. Guest comes to, stands up and spits blood at everyone, and is escorted out. Dancers brought the teeth they found to me at the bar. Not sure what I was supposed to do with them. Watched as one unique dancer, who typically communicated via meows, slowly sip her drink as a guest licked and smelled her armpit. Served Dennis Rodman a shot Georgia Meister, only for him to walk away from the bar, as though he didn't have to pay. Chased him down, and a dancer paid for it instead. Edit, format and to change TKO to KO so Gozer is happy. Gordon Ramsay walked in, ordered a 1/2 sized margarita, and told me it was perfect after he finished it. He was a ducking gentleman and even bowed and said thank you on the way out. I later learned they were filming an episode of Kitchen Nightmares around the corner and he knew the chef who owned the restaurant where I was bartending. He came in the next night too. I had a convo with ducking Gordon Ramsay 2 days in a row. Finally, some delicious ducking margarita. Honestly, fight between someone dressed as SpongeBob and someone as an Oompa Loompa, SP, no one was seriously hurt. Ah man, that reminds me of when my roommate, while dressed as Gumby, once got in a fight at a bar with the other Gumby. Other Gumby's buddy who was dressed as Pokey was egging them both on. Yes, it was Halloween. Edit, my Gumby's costume was cooler, he lined his silhouette with light up lead wire. I watched a guy dressed as Master Chief one punch a guy in a Joker costume. It was amazing. I was also jumped by a group of guys dressed as Smurfs. My friend saved me from anything too serious, but I was covered in blue paint with plenty of bruises and road rash. It was a Tuesday night and we were closing at midnight. A group of about 6 gentlemen came to my bar, seemingly intoxicated but overall pretty friendly. Small talk revealed they are mostly from the Portland area and are here, undisclosed location near the Philadelphia area, for their best friend's wedding, tomorrow. The one guy asks for a shot of the most expensive tequila we have. That is Clay Sizzle Joe at $150 a shot. He says he'll take it. So I run downstairs. This occurred on a rooftop bar, grab the bottle and all the fancy stuff to go with it, perform my little presentation in front of him, and he grabs the snifter filled with $150 worth of our best tequila, and says okay boys circle up. Without missing a beat, as if it were choreographed, the 6 guys get in a circle, and start flapping their arms, positioned like chicken wings from the chicken dance, crouch down, and start chirping like baby birds. Guy #1 then takes the shot and spits it into Guy #2's mouth, Guy #2 into Guy #3's mouth, and so on until it reaches Guy #6 who receives and swallows the now certainly warm and slimy shot like a ducking champ. Found out afterward they were all on shrooms, but coolest shit I've ever seen. Woulda calmed the shot if I had the power. Hope those boys are doing well. One lady, older, mid-50s, walked up to 2 younger guys, barely 21 and said I got big hands and a tight PSSY. I had to tell her to leave them alone. She was very drunk there regularly. I'm more interested in why she thought big hands was a selling point. A lady came in and very casually asked for a pack of Camel Crush and a glass of milk. I asked her if she wanted ice in it as it was a hot Texas summer day. She said no, then went out to the patio to smoke her cigs and drink her milk. That is a bit odd. Crushes and milk. Gross lol, I'm trying reconcile the 2 flavors and I just keep getting the McPoils from Sunny lol. Small town bar. Guy rides his horse to town. Proceeds to get drunk, goes out and rides the horse into the bar. Horse knows where home is, so the guy lets the horse take him home. That's like the oldest trick in the book. The horse knows where the home is. My grandfather used to do shit like that in rural Lithuania, but with a horse cart. Now I'm waiting for this feature to be available on Teslas. Worked a bar right downtown on a very main street in a very open and visible setting. Middle-aged wealthy looking guy comes in, orders a pint. No problems. Gets the pint, walks back out the door, probably gonna smoke/hang out outside. Whatever. Gets back into his car and immediately pulls it and drives off. He did it so fast and with such confidence, like it was a ducking Big Mac and we were McDonald's. Full pint in a glass. It was hilarious and weird. When I went out to the smoking area to clear some glasses and checking intoxication, a big red flag that these two people that have had enough and needed to leave was this guy fingering the girl he was hooking up with in the asshole. Now, I know what you're thinking. How would I see him actually slipping a finger in? Well, her ass was half out and about 7 customers had their eyes popping out of their heads the whole time. This was also in the smokers area, which was out the front of the pub and on the main road of the town I lived in. I caught a guy jerking off in the dart room one slow Tuesday night. It was last call and I was moving the floor mats to mop behind the bar when I saw him with his back to me making a jerk off motion in the dart room. I assumed he was making a gesture at someone like a joke or something, so I ignored it. Until I walk by again and he still do it. Duck. I walk up and there he is, hog out, totally hard jerking off, staring at the 2 couples of kids finishing their dart game. What the duck dude was all I could think to say. He tried to hide his doll and replied, "I'm on a bunch of molly, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for my girlfriend." I just threw my hands up and said, "You have 5 seconds to get the duck out of this bar. I don't wanna bounce a dude with a boner." He ran away. I walked up to the 2 couples and said, "Why didn't you tell me he was doing that?" They said they felt that he was being weird but didn't look over cause he was making them uncomfortable. Unreal. I tell the story to everyone and after describing his appearance, multiple people confirmed that he has done this at other places and gotten away with it. Fast forward a couple years and I'm working at a different bar. A customer is like, "Hey dude, some guys in here with a boner." I look around the room and there he is, jerk off guy with a boner again. I just scream across the bar, "Get the duck out to here, jerk off guy," and he ran out. Bar patrons, if someone is making you uncomfortable or jerking off in the bar, please alert the staff. Edit. People are saying I should have called the cops. Okay, he's obviously a criminal and this behavior needs to be stopped. In my defense, the first time I was in shock and the second time I'm behind a bar across the room, I never really got a chance. You never know how you'll react to an unsolicited hard cock until you're confronted by one. I'm not chasing jerk off guy down the street. And if the cops won't show up for brawls, people threatening cowhawkers or wrestling knives out of homeless guys' hands, they probably won't show up for jerk off guy. I was a bartender in NZ a few years back and some dude attending a work function lit his own face on fire with a flaming shot. He lit it, then shot it, but poured a bunch of it on his face at the same time. Afterwards he didn't want to go to the hospital, he wanted to keep partying, so I got him some burn cream from the kitchen. Every time he came back to the bar after that, the blisters forming on his face were bigger, juicier, and nastier. That story trumps another time when I came across a dude getting a BJ in the corner of the balcony while I was packing up after we'd closed. I'll let them finish. Not a bartender, but work at a place with a bar. This husband and wife sat at the bar when another man came in and demanded the woman get up and move. The husband defended his wife and said they got there first and there were other open chairs at the bar the stranger could sit at. The man proceeded to verbally threaten the couple's lives before pulling out a gun. My manager called the cops and informed the man that the cops would be there in less than a minute because they patrolled the shopping center constantly. So the man ran out the front door and tried to escape on foot, but police saw a man running with a gun in his hands out in public away from a restaurant where a man had just pulled a gun on someone and arrested him. My manager had to go with the police to the police station to identify the man and give a statement. It was the wildest thing that's ever happened to me at work. Damn, that's nuts. Was the guy on something? I just don't see how that spun so far out of control so fast. No idea. I was a busser at the time and was just really slowly bussing a table by the bar as all this unfolded. The guy just thought that he was entitled to that specific share and was willing to kill for it.